All right, guys. So today we're going to be talking about music in focus.
Yeah.
We're actually going to do a little tour going from Memphis, coming back to New Orleans, maybe go to New York, and then go to LA, and we'll kind of like land back in New Orleans where we are.
Sure.
We're actually in Canada today, and I'm just so honored to have two great people, two great producers. So,
thanks for having us, man.
So I'm going to start with you, Greg Barnhill. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Well, I was born and raised here. I was born and raised partially in Chalmette, and then I moved over to Slidell, north of the lake. But I worked all my life in the city playing music. In my musical endeavors, I played in Bourbon Street, played all the you name it, clubs. Played with different bands around here, and I cut my teeth, and then I went to school at University of Southern Mississippi, which for music, I went to school there for about a year and a half, and then a band came along, and it was like too good to drop. I dropped out of school and went with those guys because it was paying too much. My mom and dad were furious, man. They didn't like that a bit, but it was just an opportunity, and and I learned on the road a lot of things, and then in later years, I learned when I moved to Nashville about the music business, how it worked. And it works the same in New York and LA as well as it does in Nashville. A little different, but pretty much the same. But yeah, I'm from New Orleans, born and raised here, and proud to be from here. So yeah.
That's awesome. And we also have another Greg here in the house, Greg Beick. Like to hear more about you. I just met you today, but I'm very intrigued to hear a little bit more about you and the music and everything that you bring to the industry.
Well, thank you for having us here today. Yeah,
Thanks.
Greg's my buddy, and I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm from Wisconsin, so I'm a cheesehead, but I hate cheese. I started music, in Wisconsin. There's like two things to do. You drink or you bowl. And I didn't really like either. So I found my grandmother gave me a piano, and I started playing the piano and in church, actually. And I fell in love with playing piano and ended up going to college at Berkeley in Boston and got into jazz music and playing and writing songs. And I remember when I was like 18, I moved to New York City, and I think I had $50 and went up there and fell in love with the city and got a job at Manny's Music and ended up getting a job in a recording studio while I was working at Manny's. And actually, Greg was working at the same company, though we didn't know each other, but they did a lot of the Celine Dion records and this producer out there. Yep. And I worked in this one studio. While I was doing that, we got this girl a record deal, and back then, it was Tommy Mottola, the president of Sony, signed this girl to a label deal, and we both were working there. And and anyway, then I met this guy, Walter Afanasieff. He produced and wrote all the songs on Mariah's famous Christmas record. So I became his kind of like number two guy programming, and we worked on like Ricky Martin and Mark Anthony and Jennifer Lopez and Beyonce, and I just learned the craft of like recording. And then I started writing songs, and I got lucky and wrote a few songs that were successful. And it seemed like everything started steering me back home towards the Midwest. And so I finally moved back to Nashville. And I loved LA and New York and whatnot. But Nashville, the players and the musicians are so incredible. And I just fell in love with the whole vibe. And so I ended up like kind of basing my home. And so right now I live in right on Music Row in Nashville. And it's a great community. I mean, all musicians, we do sessions every day, and Greg and I work together. We do TV, music, film music, records, you name it. It's just so
one thing that comes across the bow, pretty much.
Yeah.
So
it's a great life, and in Nashville, you can kind of be a musician and have a normal life. It's like a hometown. And now we're discovering I'm new to New Orleans, but I'm falling in love with this place. It's amazing.
Well, it's an amazing town, and New Orleans has the same thing that Nashville has to offer. There's probably more great musicians down here than there are in Nashville, believe it or not. But there's not an infrastructure. There's not been an infrastructure for them to thrive and do production and have production emanate from here. And that's been the thing they did back in the day for a while, and then it kind of went away because of corruption, things of that nature. Well, it just kind of went away. But what we're aiming to do, I'm president of a foundation called the Ozone Music Education Foundation. And what one of our goals is to try to bring that music back to the region, along with G&O Inc., along with the people we're working with on the South and North Shores. So we're trying the region is what this is a region that's so rich in musical heritage that we want to bring that back, you know. And Nashville's kind of a melting pot of that, you know. And so, you know, I see sort of like Nashville and New Orleans being like almost like sister cities in a way, where some of the people that really don't quite work in Nashville can come down here and be right. It could be launched out of here like that. And vice versa, people that are country here that couldn't, you know, make it here, go to Nashville and do stuff. So it's really a symbiotic relationship. I see that being, you know, and so, you know.
Yeah. So that's kind of my story. I mean, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, I'd like to kind of get to know a little bit more about kind of like the roots of how you guys end up in Nashville. I understand in the 80s you kind of recorded a demo and went to just got signed. Give me that story because I think
it's a good one. It's a good one.
So my mom was an aspiring songwriter, and so she was making trips to Nashville, and she was a member of this thing called the NSAI, Nashville Songwriters Association International. She was making trips, and one year she got the flu and she couldn't go, and she goes, "You got to go and make a demo." And I didn't know what a demo was, and so I went in WWL Studios, Channel 4 Studios here, and the guy at the time never recorded music. We were just twisting knobs trying to get, you know, sound out of stuff, and accidentally got it to work, and we recorded some demos of two songs. One song was called "Know What It's Like to Be in Your Shoes," and "For Crying Out Loud" were the two songs. And so I remember my dad and I went because my mom couldn't go, and so we went to this thing. They have a seminar in Nashville, and the final day you have a thing called cassette roulette. Back then it was cassettes. So they put a cassette in a bowl, they'd reach in and they'd pick out a song, and they'd listen to it, and about 10 or 11 songs in, they pull the song out that I submitted, and they go, "Well, this is kind of good. This is, who's singing this? And this is the right way to write a song, or we think it's kind of you're on the right track. Good job, you know." And so, and you know, things went on, and 8 or 10 songs later, they pulled out the other song that my dad submitted, because each person gets submitted his song, and he submitted another one of my songs. And so they submitted the song, and this is great. Who is this? Who's singing it? That's me, a kid. Everybody's like, this guy, man, he's like getting over it. A twofer, you know. So anyway, the thing was, I get up to get a cup of coffee, and the girl goes, "Hey, don't leave. I want to talk to you afterwards." And I didn't know who she was, and she was one of the head honchos at Warner Brothers at the time. And she goes, "We'd like to sign you to a deal at Warner Brothers, a production deal." And that doesn't mean jack, actually, really. When you get signed to a production deal, it means you're in a holding bin, you know. So, but I didn't know that at the time. I was like, "Oh, I made it, man! I signed a production deal with Warner," you know. So I remember I moved to Nashville, and I got paid $200 a week. I could make up more money at the grocery store than I could make, you know. So I had to go do landscaping and sing demos. I learned to sing demos, and thank God my dad sang really well. He sang like Hank Williams Sr. So I'd listen to him sing, and I learned how to sing this kind. It's like an acting thing where you learn a voice and a dialect, and I learned it, and I'd sing demos for people and get money for singing demos. This is kind of cool. So that's what I got into it more and more, and next thing you know, I became part of that fabric. But the more I was an artist, the more I didn't really want to be an artist. I mean, I really kind of I like the behind the scenes stuff better, the production, you know, the writing of songs, the craft of writing songs, and I was digging that and just getting in there with people like Frank Dykes and all these great country writers that were great country writers. But I was listening to pop too. I listened to all the 70s and 80s pop stuff that was in my head. You know, all the Eagles stuff, the influences, all those things were influences to me, especially the R&B, the stuff that came out of New Orleans, because that's what I grew up listening to. I gravitated to the most, you know what I mean? So that, you know, in a nutshell, you know, was
kind of how you got started and be kind of anchor in Nashville.
Exactly. Yeah.